Okay, I'd like to open up the Health and Human Services Committee meeting tonight. We have on the agenda, no appointments, 15 resolutions. But before we get into the agenda, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 8th. Approve them.
Video.
Okay, and second. Got that, Sarah?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. As I said, we have no appointments tonight, and we have 15 resolutions, 3 from the Health Department, 7 from the Department of Social Services, 2 mental health, 2 for Office for the Aging, and 1 from the Youth Bureau. So if we'd like to get started, Kathleen, if you want to come up and talk about your 3 resolutions tonight. Start with HH1.
H1 is our request to fill a part-time public health nurse position within the WIC program. I think no secret to those of you who attend this meeting all the time, some of our positions are kind of a revolving door, and our WIC office has had more than its fair share of vacancies over this past year. So one of the ways we've been trying to stay on top of our participant needs and processing them in a timely manner is to bring in some temporary assistance. And we had someone who had retired who was assisting us. She's temporary. We'd like to create 100% funded through our WIC program, public health nursing position to be able to fill in as needed. 1, to get us caught up, and then 2, as necessary as time goes on to support the WIC program.
Create and fill a part-time staff dedicated just to WIC.
Correct.
And
Yep. I didn't want there to be any misperception. It would just be for WIC, which is why we stated that.
can I get a motion for HH1 in a second?
I'll move it. I'll second.
The only question I had, Kathleen, is this particular create and fill of a part-time public health nurse. Obviously, the public health nurse has WIC approval to do some of the nutrition counseling. Is that why you're bringing them in?
Correct.
And if in fact you end up filling a WIC nutritionist or a CPA or whatever we're looking at through the next resolution, you would reevaluate even if you continue to need this part-time assistance?
I think, well, it's constant reevaluation, right? So right now, we're just a little bit behind the curve, right? We're just getting people caught up whose benefits are expiring. And we want to be able to get to the people so that we're not down to the week they're expiring. So there'd be some overlap and some extension beyond when we fill.
Because you need a nutrition assessment before people.
Correct. Yeah. So as part of the process, there's a collection of data and making appointments. And still a lot of our work can be done virtually or in person. But there's a nutrition assessment, which is the federal government does not allow just anyone to do that. They're very specific as to the qualifications, which leads to part of our challenge in trying to fill some of these roles, right? You see competent professional authority, you see nutritionist. It has to do with the type of nutrition formal education they have. And with the nurse, they were very specific. It used to be, you could be an RN, but you actually have to be a bachelor's prepared nurse according to the federal government to do some of this.
That's why the PHN created.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions on HH1?
Behind.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen.
So you said part-time help as needed once caught up.
Yep.
So is this person like on call then and then they come in, or are they actually just sitting there getting paid, waiting for work to happen?
No, well, first we've got to stay within our budget, right? So that wouldn't even be possible to have somebody who's sitting around waiting and paying them. But truly the individual that we would have assist us has a full-time job, and it would be, as their availability and our need for service.
Nice bit. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Okay, that kind of dovetails to asking to create, to fill a WIC nutritionist that's still vacant.
Correct. So actually, we just filled one CPA position, which was an ability to fill a nutritionist or a CPA, which I know it's a hard acronym. You think of accountants when you hear that, but it means competent professional authority. We had a resignation just a couple of weeks ago of the person who was our nutritionist. So we're very much hoping to find a nutritionist. If we cannot find a nutritionist after giving a period of time to search for that, we'd like permission to make that a competent professional authority position, fill that.
Can I get a motion for HH2?
I'll move it.
Second. That was one of the resolutions that I think Rich had talked about, needed revision and clarity that it's one or the other.
Correct.
And it was revised to say, after 4 weeks, you can't do it, you'll go in, but you'll only fill one of those positions.
Correct.
Okay. Any other, Heidi?
So a competent professional authority then must have like a certain set of credentials in lieu of the nutritionist
It
background?
does. So a nutritionist is a nutrition degree, and the federal government wants to see a bachelor's prepared person with a nutrition degree. Competent professional authority, they still want a bachelor's prepared person, but you could be an English major, but you have to have 6 credits in nutrition. Some people who take health science majors might have a 3-credit nutrition, but we still need that 6 credits, and it's not as many people as you might think don't have that. So it's hard. It's hard to find either one, but slightly easier to find the competent professional authority.
And it is, they're both the same grade, which I found kind of
We
interesting.
deliberately made that the same grade. No,
Okay.
we used to have, at the beginning of this year, we had a supervising nutritionist, which is really still, that would be the ideal structure within our organization. But if we can get we can teach a nutritionist, and then eventually we could make that request for a supervisor down the line. Because there's not really a secondary person.
Yep. Okay, any other questions about HH2? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is a contract with you, the county attorney's office, and Von Schenek and King, the 3-way agreement.
It is. We've been working with Chris and his team right along, and Rich, and but there's a lot of work that the public health department needs, and some of it, is better taken care of in a more time-sensitive nature due to some of the circumstances. So in speaking with Chris, he recommended we take a look. We talked to Von Schenek and King. They do have someone who can pick up some of this work, and therefore we'd like to have permission to enter into a contract. As part of that resolution, clearly anything that we would look to do would first be passed through our attorney's office. They would give the okay, and then we would move forward with utilizing a contractor.
Can I get a motion in a second and then another discussion?
Move, Lydia.
I'll second.
Okay.
Question?
Yep.
The revision, what is that?
We got the rates. We didn't have the rates initially when we submitted it. Thank you.
And yeah, so you have the hourly rate for the attorney and then the hourly for the associate and an amount not to exceed.
Correct.
So this is part of the ripple effect of not being able to find attorneys and the amount of work that needs to be processed through your office.
It's I know Christine's here, I'm not complaining, but it's the social services we're constantly in court. We're meeting caseworkers several times a day. I don't mind it, I like it, actually. It's what I did for several years before I came up here. But they're just not enough hours.
I was curious, maybe you could weigh in on this too. Unlike we're going to talk about the agreement between social services and the county attorney's office, whereby we'll have a contract, you'll have a contract with the department, you'll track your hours, the department will reimburse you. Or this is in DSS now, right? Okay, there is one that's coming. My question is, there is no such agreement between the health department and the county attorney's office, even though you would have reimbursement as well, correct?
Right. And they're very supportive. And we've talked about that, but
We're really only using him at this point for Board of Health orders,
Primarily, yes,
and the rewriting of the
the tobacco.
tobacco is gonna be covered under a TUPA grant.
Correct.
That one we already have. We can be reimbursed. We submit our hours that are associated.
That's
with-
because the grant's there, yes. But you're not, for any other legal work you do for the county health department, you're not, you don't, it's not through a contract, is my
No.
question.
And it's not for any of the other departments either.
Except
No
social
contract.
services now.
Well, social services is a district. And they
Okay.
have the right to contract for all sorts of things,
Okay.
including legal.
And the health department wouldn't have that same right?
No.
The health department to get state aid, the health department has to direct the work. So I'd have to be saying, Chris, we need to do this. We could make a
Okay,
contract.
all right, so it makes sense
Yeah.
why it would not have had the contract there. Okay, thanks. Any other questions about the entering into that contract between the health department, the county attorney's office, and Von Schenek and King? Right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
So just an update, I know I put a whole bunch of bullets because I was trying to, in my mind, I had to go through the different divisions within our department. I think one of the big things, you'll see a lot of highlights, but we're still looking to fill a number of positions. I mean, here I came and requested permission, but we're still looking for a junior accountant position. You know, we're mulling over options there that we'll have some more conversation about down the line. We have a senior public health educator vacancy that now that we have a division director there, we've asked this person to spend a month or so assessing whether that's the role that seems appropriate or should it be somehow different and help identify that. Talked about the nutritionist, certified professional authority. And we are fortunately having some interviews currently. There were 2 today for early intervention service coordinator. So we've got some interviews set up to fill those 2 vacancies. The hardest one that we're refreshing our advertising is the director of community health, which really is the director of nursing. So while the civil service title is such, we're going to put the advertising out, call it director of nursing. So it's plainly apparent to people what that role is.
Mhm.
And hopefully we'll see something, but that is a void that we feel that void. Dr. Joy is very helpful, but it's very beneficial for us to get someone there. Talked about the job vacancies. I had spoken with Elaine a little bit about the contract that I don't have enough information yet to know whether I'm going to come back to you, Elaine, and ask about the opportunity maybe to bring it to Ways and Means. I expect I'll get a little bit more information as part of a pre-K, our preschool special education. We need to have a contract with nursing aid. We have not had that because there had not been a need. We don't have a CHA. I think in the past maybe a CHA could have sufficed for some of that. But nonetheless, we need to enter into a contract with an agency. We actually have a circumstance where it's a child who would need a nurse to accompany them for a full day of preschool. There is a space in a preschool program for this child.
Like on the bus, go to the school, sit in the school, or the kid can't participate.
The child has some very specific health needs that require the presence of a nurse. And at this time, there's no one to do that. So we're working to try and identify. It's our obligation as a county to identify to have a contract with an agency. That agency then would help us to identify a nurse.
And that's kind of what we talked about, instead of rushing in with this resolution until you even know if it's possible to get that contract, or if they have staff it, you'll get more information.
So, right, very much. I asked them basically, do you think it's realistic you could identify a staff member? And we want to enter into contract.
Yeah.
But do you think it's realistic that you will?
Mhm.
So
You're
I
waiting to
haven't
hear
heard
back.
it's a fun thing that you all saw the press release yesterday, the Pedal in the Park, that's at Fairhaven State Park on Friday. That's Tommy Shock, who has worked on our injury prevention program for over 20 years. He's fantastic. This is one of his creative ways, and it's all about injury prevention, encouraging physical exercise, wearing your bike helmets, learning how to stop at stop signs. It's geared more toward little kids, but certainly everyone can benefit. And he'll do another one later on. He tries to at Fillmore Glen. also. And he does all sorts of bike rodeos around, but at the state parks, he likes to, he's just clever. He's clever, very dedicated to what he does. We had an early intervention survey from Key Pro, which is the contracted agency from the State Department of Health, to look in this case at our provision of early intervention services as a municipality. That was on Tuesday. It went really well. It went, there were very simple findings that in the draft that was given to us, it was like, update this list because this agency doesn't exist anymore. Okay, we can do that. So I'm really pleased that went as well as it did. We had some conversation also this week, some of us with the Emerson Foundation and the Allen Foundation representatives. And this is just, it's really very preliminary discussions as to a possibility, but we'd like to take a look at a window and door replacement program and perhaps having these philanthropic organizations help sponsor some of the costs.
For homeowners or landlords?
For exactly, for the, we'll call it the property owner.
Okay.
The only time, and again, this is all initial discussions. The only time someone would not be eligible would be if you are a landlord position where you have a hearing, a notice and demand because of an already poisoned child. We want to, we talked about having some sort of buy-in and basing things on, your income and what you could afford or not. We talked about the idea that the health department would be the first agency, if you're interested, it would be perhaps a not-for-profit who administered the program, but the health department would go in and identify where in the home those windows or doors should be replaced, because we have this prevention program, because we know it's very expensive, right? And so while your attic windows might have lead in them, your 3-year-old is not likely to be playing in the attic. So they probably would not be the ones you'd look to replace initially. And then working, through the not-for-profit agency to help in facilitating a contractor and finding this work. There is interest in identifying whether the county and also the city, so I'm speaking with all of you first, just happened this week, would have interest in putting forward some funds to help offset the cost of window and door replacement. It is not something that our lead poisoning grant can do. We can do a lot of different things, but we cannot. And so, I sent an email just today, so they haven't even had a chance to look at it, to social service staff. Actually, you see if by some stretch there might be something in any funding that you're aware of in your programs or out in the community that could help offset costs. And then I wanted to just bring this forward with the county even have an interest in identifying some funds to help put towards something like that.
So you're asking if the private organizations, Allen Foundation, Emerson Foundation, put in money towards windows and doors, would there be some government money in addition through the city of Auburn or the county?
Or both.
Or both to add money, funds to this program to impact lead poisoning?
Specifically to the window and door cost, as opposed to in-kind services from the health, right? We're going to do these services anyways.
A program money.
Correct.
Yes, to buy the doors, buy the windows, installation, whatever else.
Right. So I bring that up as a consideration. I don't know if you have particular questions when you mull it over a little bit. I'd be happy to try and convey any thoughts or questions toward that. But it's really exciting because that would be long-term sustainable change in those places. True prevention
Around lead poisoning for children.
not just painting over the issue, but abating it entirely in that area. And then finally, I just wanted to take a moment in a more public setting to acknowledge Eileen O'Connor, our environmental health director, is retiring next month. She's had 30 years of just incredibly dedicated service to our county. She really is recognized as a subject matter expert across New York State. She's called upon. And she's amazing. I mean, I'll go on and I'll probably talk at the Board of Health and I'll gush over her a little more. She certainly is one of the most talented women I know, who has such a technical mind, but can speak in layperson terms, right? And she does so in such a calm and respectful manner. So thought I would let you know that she will be greatly missed within our county.
When's your last day?
August 9th. So that's all I have to say today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say that, let her know, and I'll call her. She's been tremendous for us in Fairhaven and helping us answer questions and stuff like that. She will be a resource that will be greatly missed for us up there with our water system, changing from septic to all that stuff. She's answered and helped us with some resident issues. So I'll have to give her a call.
She'll appreciate that. There's no question.
The 9th is
Water
when
resources and water quality are her number one focus and passion. So she's exceptional. Yeah.
Great. Christine?
My phone stand here. Because I don't shuffle papers and down.
What I was thinking, just to kind of move things along, if we could group together HH 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we could go through those 4 resolutions, the first being accepting some funds, and the next 3 being contracts that you're going to be entering into. And then once you're done presenting 4, 5, 6, and 7, I'll ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, so HH4 is for us to accept $25,000 from the state for eligible families who are the victims of domestic violence, to provide them some emergency services. This is a contract that we've had and money that we've had available to us for a number of years. Very helpful. The folks that work with Cayuga Community Action Program. HH5 is for us to have a cooperative agreement between the Department of Social Services and the county attorney's office for the provision of legal services. They have been very gracious in helping us out over the last couple of months while we have not had attorneys to go to court on the child welfare matters and child support. And this resolution is to formalize that arrangement so that we can have a process in place to reimburse them for the services they're providing to us, which is a heavy lift, I'm sure. HH6 is for us to be given permission to enter into contracts with a number of agencies who have child welfare placement services within their agency. So children that are in residential treatment centers, that are in foster care. So this contract, we would be allowed to contract with these particular places and also any other new providers that that we may need like throughout the year if we are not able to utilize the listed agencies on the resolution. And HH7 is for us to enter into a contract with for rapid rehousing case management services through CAP. So this is, there's a case manager that has a full caseload that's dedicated to working with TANF eligible families who are homeless, and they are working towards achieving permanent housing for them and other things related to becoming self-sufficient, gaining income, maybe getting connected to other sources of income, or Social Security, things like that. TANF eligible. 100%, yeah.
Okay. All right, can someone move 4, 5, 6, and 7 in a second, and then we'll open it up?
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right. Any questions on those 4 resolutions?
So I just have a question about, understand this arrangement is happening with the county and with DSS. So what's the approach to try to get attorneys at this point? Who's leading that?
Who's leading that?
Yeah, like,
So we have done a number of things. We had the health department actually helped us create a very nice brochure. Thank you for that, Kathleen. To have a nice brochure that was a little bit fancier than we usually produce to help attract and catch people's eye. We have that out there. We have that posted within the county, boards, but that's probably not the most useful place for us to find attorneys. We've advertised in the newspaper. We have worked with HR to have listings on the most popular sites that folks use to go find jobs. Indeed, can't remember the name of some of the other ones, but that type of thing. Unfortunately, we have not been successful in attracting, even with the higher salary that we, had approval to pay these folks. We were actually just talking today, and I was talking with Jen, and I said, maybe what we're going to have to do is ask permission to hire a headhunter. I mean, that was a thought. We haven't really done something like that before, but I think we have the funds within the budget since we haven't been paying, the attorneys, and we have a lot of vacancies. So I think we would have the funds available to pay a sum of money to have someone really go out and do that calling and, trying to, locate folks maybe through different law schools. I mean, that's really not our area of expertise. It'll be kind of a creative solution. So that was where our head is at today. We do have one woman actually that we're going to call back in and an interview. But her background is really not in child welfare, social services, legal work. But, maybe, with training, I mean, that would be someone that we could bring on board if we decide to do that, but we're going to bring her back in and have an interview, and we'll pull in the county attorney's office to be part of that interview as well.
Let that idea of the headhunter, actually.
Yeah, so we would need to look at, like, are there headhunters that specialize in legal employment, and then talk to them, and see if this is something that we think would be fruitful, really, that would provide us some results. And then I would have to come here and ask for.
Well, that would take another 45 days. I mean, at this point, if there's something that you find, and maybe we could figure a way to expedite.
I would love that.
Yes.
I would love that.
Why wait another 45 days to get a resolution passed so you can do it?
Okay, so if we can start working on
Unless
that.
the committee feels that we shouldn't take that step, but, why wait another, cycle?
I can let you know, then we can
Okay.
talk about a game plan
Okay.
as we get a little bit closer. We'll identify a particular
Right.
firm and
Iterator. And the plan now is these will be DSS employees. Is that currently
That's our
where
plan.
we're at? Okay,
that's our plan right now.
thanks. All right, any other questions on those 4 resolutions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, if we can, if you don't mind, with HH9, which is filling for seasonal heat clerks using heat funds, and that's filling of budgeted vacancy. And HH10 is authorizing you to fill a senior caseworker vacancy and adult protective. Those are 2 requests to fill things that are already in the budget.
Correct.
I could get a motion to group together 9 and 10.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
great. Now, if you want to talk about HH8,
Okay. So HH8 is related to our key position that's in our accounting area. So this is key position for DSS that has to do with our budgeting, claiming, and supervision of all of the staff within the DSS accounting unit. So we have been looking and been seeking to fill the Director of Administrative Services since January. And we have not been successful. We did not look at making any sort of change to the job title and bringing something forward like we are tonight, because we were hopeful that we would be able to find someone to fill the Director of Administrative Services within DSS. There was a test that was being given in January, and unfortunately, when the test results came back from that test being given, there was only one person who took the exam, interestingly, and that person was not interested in the position. We also received an application from one other person who was really not was not qualified, and didn't have what we thought was needed for the position as far as supervisory experience and other things. Didn't think it was a good match. So it's been a while since January, and trying to think of like what's a solution, because this really is a critical position and needs to be filled. So we found out, in doing some research, Jen helped me a lot with this, that the Director of Administrative Services job specification had not been reviewed or updated in Cayuga County since 1999. Jen reached out to other county departments of social services to look at how other counties structure their accounting units and their job descriptions. And we found out that the Director of Administrative Services really was a title and a job specification that had kind of fallen out of use by many counties. So the other thing that is important, I think, is to know is that the roles and responsibilities of our Director of Administrative Services have really changed and grown over the last several years, particularly with around the area of budgeting, our budget, creating the budget, and monitoring the budget through the year. We do have in Department of Social Services, we do have the budget director. That is a shared position between DSS and the Public Health Department. However, because of the county's needs, that position's focus has changed over time and has shifted to, becoming part of the overall county budget and operations and less on the day-to-day oversight of the DSS budget. So with all that kind of in mind, and we took a look at this, we set out to create and fill this Director of Fiscal Management position, incorporating the budget as a key part of the job. So we had Diane Ferris from HR take a look at the position, the duties, and she took a look at it and graded it in the non-bargaining compensation plan as a grade 6. So that grade 6 is one step higher than our Director of Administrative Services was. But it really does not amount to a lot of money as far as a difference, as far as fiscal impact. It's a little bit over $1,000.
At the high end of the new grade based on the salary?
At the high end of, yes,
Yes.
yeah. It's specifically, I mean, it's $1,405 would be the net local cost. If we went from having the Director of Administrative Services at the salary grade 5 and going up to the Director of Fiscal Management at grade 6 at $84,000 on the fringe. So it's really, there's not a huge local impact, fiscal impact, but we think that we would be able to hopefully attract some new, some new folks that haven't seen this before. We added in a lot of the budget information and, the job specifications for their qualifications is a little bit different too. It involves banking as an area that can be brought in as expertise for consideration. So we're hoping that this is going to make a difference for us. I think that, Grace has been helping. Lynn has certainly been helping. And our accounting staff are doing the best they can, but there's a lot more that we need to do, and I think it just makes sense.
Okay, can we get a motion in a second and then open it up to questions if we have any?
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions?
So I understand your approach, and I think it's wise. My question was, when you mentioned about say the DSS budget, would that mean that our budget director would be doing less of that or none of that at all compared to what she does now? I mean, when you have somebody in that position.
A lot of what she had done for us in the past has really moved away to was with the Director of Administrative Services. So that was a lot of what Grace was doing when Grace was in that position.
Yeah.
It had already moved away from the budget director of the county to the Director of Administrative Services, but we never updated the job specifications for the Director of Administrative Services to incorporate all that budget stuff that moved to her over time as, the budget director became more involved with the overall county budget planning and monitoring and all that stuff.
Yeah, so my question would be for the budget director's position, we need to think about, how it currently stands, DSS and health department is like a core role for her. It has been in the past, so we just need to think about how that position looks too. But in terms of this position and what you're offering this evening, I think that's wise, and being creative is what we have to do right now.
The only thing I had seen an email that when Diane had submitted the information back to the department, that she had looked at the job description, she called it a grade. She looked at it in terms of the current structure we had and what grade it should fall in by the scoring tool. But she did make mention that because the bands of these non-bargaining positions have not been reevaluated as they just did with the legal, that she would not be shocked if when you come to fill this, that you might have to exceed the high end of the higher band and come back.
and ask
But
for
yes, she
permission to
just
do
said,
that.
make the committee aware that until those bands are re-looked at, that, this is the current grade, but, hopefully you'll be able to fill within it. But if not, you might have to come back and ask to exceed the current band.
Yep.
Any other questions on this?
So we would, the first resolve where the grade is Xed out, we would need to.
That was
amend
amended.
to
That,
put the 6 in.
that did get amended too, I think,
Oh,
Heidi,
did it?
because yes, there were 3 resolutions that were amended and that was one of them. Because it was in the authorization to fill, just not in the, the updated one should have a grade 6 in it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next, and Lauren is not available tonight. And basically, I told her that I would give it a shot and Liz would not have to come in. But mental health has 2 resolutions tonight, HH 11. And that would be a similar resolution that we've seen periodically through the calendar year, where the additional 2023 mental health state aid has been allocated to several contract agencies requiring adjustments to the budget. So they get additional state aid and they make the following adjustments to these agencies that they're providing funding to that deal with the 3 disability groups. So if this passes, this will allow, for example, us to add $2,000 of state aid to the Cayuga counseling contract, $12,000 to Unity House, $1,875 to Nick's Ride, $23,000 to Liberty, and it goes down Cayuga Centers and CAD and Unity House Oasis program. So it's really just reallocating some additional state aid that came in and amending the 2023 budget. The next resolution from mental health is HH 12, and that will allow the mental health department to accept dialectic behavioral therapy funds. And I checked with Lauren, it's a grant coming in for $170,000, and this will be used to credential all of the mental health counselors, mental health staff to be certified in DBT skills. So if I could get a motion for H 11 and 12.
Second.
Any questions or concerns?
Yeah, what is DB? What is DB?
Dialectical behavioral therapy.
Yeah, it's kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy. It's an evidence-based, I guess it deals with emotional regulation. I don't know, but that's what I need, a little bit of emotional regulation.
Question.
Yes.
Just on how that money was divided.
Yep.
Was there
You know,
a formula or did someone say I needed 2,000, I needed 12,000?
that, I don't,
Curious, someone
yes.
might ask us.
yes, and
It's $73,196 that would spread out. It came from a grant or something?
no, they get like $4 million of state aid that comes into mental health, the mental health department, and they have to allocate it to, they keep some for the mental health department, but then they allocate it to community-based organizations who work with the 3 disability groups.
Okay.
And they pass this money along based on the plan that they devise and the needs of the community. So, but I honestly, I was thinking that when I told her that.
It's usually done in conjunction with the Community
Oh,
Services Board.
Is there a
I haven't
formula
seen-
though, or is it? I mean, how did that, someone gives you $4 million and you start chinking it here and there and there. Someone's gonna ask, maybe it's not important, but I'm just curious.
I've not ever sat on the Community Services Board, but they chunk this out. A lot of it is based, I think, they look at the budgets and the services being provided that fit, like this particular set of monies is families with disabilities. So it makes sense for me, for instance, at Liberty Resources, because 100% of their mission is families with disabilities, versus Cayuga Counseling Services, which has a very diverse set of. So I don't know.
I'm on the
I don't-
CSB and I'm not quite clear how all these decisions are made, but this is an additional state aid and they must communicate with the agencies that they're funding and they make the case for additional funds. But I'll find that out.
Just got a question.
Yep.
You said the three what?
Disability groups, mental health, substance use disorder, and
I'll look for that.
OPWDD, developmental disabilities.
Hold on.
Great. Do you have a motion and a second? All in favor? Those answers for me. Yeah. Okay, and Office for Aging? Brenda?
So you want me to just talk about the resolutions to start?
Sure.
All right, so the first one on the list is our just adjusting the budget. It's mid-year, so after June, we look at our expenses and where everything's at. Two things that we needed to look at. We did not end up purchasing a second vehicle that we thought we were going to from the COVID funding. Determined it wasn't needed. So we want to put that funding back into department expense because we have more of a need there. And then the other item is just taking money. Of course, we've had the vacancy in the position plus our aging services assistant position. So we've had to have some part-time people come in to do that, and we needed to move money into the appropriate line to cover that expense. That's what that one is.
Motion for HH 13.
I'll move it. I'll second.
Any questions?
I just, since we're seeing a lot of these really hard to get, yeah, I'm wondering if whatever party we contract with as a headhunter can maybe help with some other, we'll have to talk with HR about that, but I think it's wise to just try that, what we're doing is not working. Indeed, it's apparently flush with like many positions out there, but nobody's acting on them. So
And the fiscal seems to be the most critical too.
and headhunting works. I mean, I was a product of headhunting. My husband has gone to different positions because the headhunter calls him. So it does work.
Headhunters is the way to go.
And they do specialize.
It's not that you specialize, you're finding somebody that is willing to lead the come. You're not putting out there for somebody putting their foot in the water and
Right.
put out several applications. This person was comfortable and they made a conscious decision to leave. So usually your stay rate is higher.
Not what I meant by professionals, they can box, we hire headhunters for specific jobs. They look for, whether it's in nursing or attorneys or construction management, or you gotta find the right headhunter too.
Right.
But oftentimes, like you're suggesting, they're just happy working. They get that phone call. They're like, oh, interesting. Okay, because they're not otherwise looking.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
you
just
use
a
their
great
stay
way.
rate, and then you don't have to worry about the whole salary thing because they moved, they already they already got briefed on that and they're either in or out. So maybe it's something for the entire county.
Right,
instead of, you
exactly.
know, I see somebody nodding back there.
That was two thumbs up.
Someone's nodding off.
I'm looking at everybody out there, all the department heads are all like, all right. They're all nodding.
Perhaps,
It's used in the private sector quite often.
perhaps Ways and Means can talk to HR about you know, this possibility of, you know, taking on one role with DSS, but maybe you know, see what they can do for other.
Great.
But that's my only.
Okay. All in favor on this resolution?
I have a question.
One more question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Under the truckable equipment, this is a car.
The car we're not getting anymore. We had moved money in there to buy 2 cars. We only bought 1.
And that money you moved in was ARPA,
COVID funding, yes.
COVID fund.
Yeah, yeah. For us, it was CARES Act. I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to check on that so that
You just
if we were
decided
making
not to.
a car and then we're getting something different. Okay.
Discussion with staff said that it wasn't needed. 1, 2, we had a real strict time limit. We were considering some other options. And then as time went on, realized that it probably is needed in other expenses. One of the things that's happening with our department is we are at the end of all the COVID funding that we had. So this year, probably everything we've got is going to run out. And one of the things that it was a confluence of different factors, that money has somewhat protected the county from increased need over the last 3 or 4 years. And also increased costs. You know, I've come to you with increased costs for aids, increased costs for food, increased costs for gas, and all of those are things that we can pay some of it out of some of the CARES money. And so the thought was we've got to stretch that money as far as we can. That was really kind of why we did this.
CARES money's gonna run out, so you better put it in and use it.
And use it really wisely.
Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to. So it was great to get the 1 extra car. We just, that was good. We were considering somewhat of a specialized vehicle, but decided that could wait for now.
And the 30 you're putting in professional expense is really to cover the part-time fiscal support that you have right now.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And if I could just add, I did ask our fiscal person to help me explain a little bit. As you know, she's a county employee, county retiree who came back to work with us, and she's found the position a big learning curve. She knew the county process, she knew Munis, but I just would like to kind of read what she told me, and it's one of the things that makes the job a little bit harder and a little bit more unique. She says, because of the volume of services that Office for the Aging provides, we receive almost or process almost 1,000 invoices a year. Our revenue from our state and federal funding includes at least 18 funding streams, all with unique parameters and requirements. And that number of funding streams went up to about 26 during COVID and with our COVID money. The majority of the invoices that we get for expenses are not allocated to one grant. And that's what she was familiar with, is if I get a grant to upgrade the vehicles, when buy new vehicles, then we buy new vehicles and that's it. That's not how our funding works. Our funding is allocated in appropriate percentages to various grants. So this process requires massive spreadsheets and pivot tables, and I've learned so much in the last few months that I never knew before, to track all those expenses to be able to maximize the claims for reimbursement to the county. And that's a really important phrase. We've been very blessed with very capable fiscal people for the last 12 years in our department, and they have worked very hard to maximize the claims for reimbursement to the county. And you can see that if you look back through the last dozen years of our cost to the county has stayed almost level, gone up a bit here and there. More recently, it's gone down, but our goal is to provide as much services as we possibly can with the funding we have, and to claim as much of that funding down to the penny as we can bring into the county to cover our costs. And that's what we're always trying to do. For a part-time person to do it, or for someone without cost accounting or even county experience, it's very challenging. A simple example, she said, is postage. She said multiple services in our department have postage costs, and I'm not talking about the county postage necessarily. That's part of it. We also do a newsletter. We also have to send out, we do bulk mailings. We do a bunch of different things. But depending on what it's for, multiple services in the department have postage costs, and we can't allocate that total postage costs to one grant one month and a different grant the next month. Or we have to allocate it based on the percentage of a particular grant or series of grants that particular postage effort was under. And so it gets very complicated. She said, if we were just to put it under one grant one month and another grant another month, that's just not an acceptable accounting practice. An auditor would question that. You can't do that. It's got to be allocated appropriately. So she said most of the funding or most of the expenses we have to be allocated by percentage across all of the grants. Some of them can be done that way, but most of them have to go to a set of specific grants. And then she said everything that is done regarding that fiscal process is tied together, and that makes it challenging to learn, hard to manage, and hard to parcel it out. Because I know we've been encouraged to try to find some temporary part-time other people that could help us with it. And both the previous person in the role and this current person have said, there's just not much to parcel out because it's so integrated and it's such a complex system. So I want to be able to continue to provide and claim maximum reimbursements to the county. And the longer we leave this position and other positions, I'm assuming vacant, the more we put that at risk. These are key positions, really key positions for the county.
Did you just get 2 applicants, but neither one worked out?
I haven't heard of anything recent. About a month ago, I had 2 applicants.
No, I thought Diane had said it was a half. There were two.
It's like we're talking about 2 applicants, and like, there are no 2 applicants, did they start or did they work out?
No, Diane had said, because I asked
No,
about
it's
the
just-
half contract.
It's like we're dealing with such a small group.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about 2.
It can't to do with the parceling out. We were able to say, this is the piece we can share with the person from half. The person said, I live too far away. I don't want to come in for that. Can I do it remotely? They'd have to come in to get the materials, 1,000 invoices. We're not going to scan those and mail them to them.
Yeah.
And they said, no, that wouldn't work. So every time we have a lead, we definitely
Yes.
follow it.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah. So.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm a newbie here, but I understand that there were some changes made in financial services in our county. And it was my understanding that part of it was about centralizing shared services and things like that. Are we ever going to bring rather than continuing to hire a junior accountant for OFA and a junior accountant for DSS and a junior accountant for Department of Health, are we ever going to bring that work together into this building?
I can't speak to that at all, obviously.
I
can tell
think
you
I was
that-
kind of asking the legislature
Yeah.
because
I think you're talking about centralizing a lot of the functions under the finance department and payroll.
or the shared
Country.
services model that we talked about. And I think we did a lot of hiring of new people and we've made a lot of changes and
I think there's so many vacancies now. I don't even know how they would even begin to, do a transfer function and have all the fiscal staff sitting upstairs. And that was obviously what they were looking at, doing a more centralized approach to a lot of the things the county does, payroll but I think
do we have that one person sitting up there that can do the work?
I don't think we have.
You mean our finance officer?
Finance, accounting,
I mean, we have
anybody. I
Grace.
mean, we-
Right, but now,
But Grace has been doing 2 jobs since she started.
and now they're losing, I think,
I
another
think
fiscal
the-
staff upstairs.
Hello,
Yeah,
hi, Elaine, it's Grace. Can
Hi,
I
Grace.
speak on that a little bit?
sure.
So, I mean, right now, unfortunately, we're still short on staff. And we currently have our other key person in the department, our accountant, is out on kind of like a medical leave. And we're not sure when or if she'll be back at this point. So, and right now, I mean, I'm still doing a lot of work for DSS as well to help. So at this point, it's really difficult for us to even think about consolidating some of those, functions. We don't have the staff even up in the finance department right now.
So I wonder if we can challenge our county finance department, whatever we're called, to maybe think rather than filling several junior accountant roles, maybe finding a solution that's a little more long-term and a little more centralized or shared services, kind of along the route that we started traveling a year or two ago.
I mean, what I believe Lydia is referring to is when we came in, all of a sudden there was two new departments, the finance and accounting or whatever were split up because of regulations and so forth. And all we're hearing about is all these different departments that want to have their own accountants. And instead of this centralized, which we were going to try to do internally, shared services, basically. Everyone would send their stuff. Maybe the headhunter should be hired to help fill that department. And pay two people a little bit more money than 4 or 5 people throughout the county, small amounts.
That's an operational question.
Just for information, I did bring, I needed to really down more trees, but this is our job description, and I really would bring your attention to the typical work activities on the back. Because this is a very, very busy position.
Is it possible you can do 2 departments? One person?
One
It seems
person.
like a lot
I've
of,
had phenomenal people in this position who have kept up with it. I don't know if a mere mortal could do it. I just really don't. Not if you want the quality claims and reimbursement, the maximization of the grants. I mean, we could get smaller, we could not do as much, we could not have as much reimbursement.
I don't think that's what you were referring to,
No.
that the work wouldn't be as competent or done. Is there a way to centralize it all? And at this point, I don't know. It is an
We
operational.
were sold a bill of sale that this problem can be resolved. I don't continue to hear
I don't know about that.
this problem continue.
That's a long-term goal.
Right, but we're not
If we
any
had the
closer to
staff,
that.
It would be a lot. No, not right now. We are not.
Right, so when are we, as the legislature, going to say, all right, it's time to start working toward that long-term goal?
That's what I mean, my statement earlier, that's like an operational question at this point too, to see, that's like a department head would work with Shereen and the chair to talk over some of these issues too.
I can tell you that's not the model in most of the area counties, other than the largest ones, that all the others typically, because of programming and fiscal being so closely related, and Office for the Aging and us needing to be so nimble, it is embedded in the department.
There's definitely a few departments that, right, DSS is one.
Would probably need
You
their own.
can't have a jack of all trades also do DSS claiming. Like that's right. It's very similar.
Will be done by?
Yes, payroll, those kinds of
Yes,
things,
Right,
absolutely.
there are certain
Things to start with.
accounting processes that are similar.
But what I think is, what you're saying is you probably got an overworked department being short staffed now anyways, and now you're gonna tell them to pick on another department?
No, what I'm saying is, we started setting up an organization within the county to solve that problem. And I've heard nothing for the last year and a half.
So anyway, maybe you should give her the chair and and I think that's the way you start, right? It's operational, so you'd be the chair and the vice chair and. I mean, I don't,
Been trying to solve it for 12 years since I've been here.
That's what I'm saying. And it's still not going anywhere.
And apparently,
Since then, we've lost a lot of staff.
Might get lucky. Maybe you get lucky in the next 12.
well, apparently the group before us made a move that we didn't have to get, we didn't vote on, but I think what Lydia's saying is we should, are we gonna work towards that
Eventually
goal? Or
work
we
towards
just
that.
are we just abandoning it?
No, I don't think.
We're the legislator now. We can't.
put a committee together. I don't know who forms the committee. Jared forms the
What
committee.
about the committee that established in the first place? Shouldn't they continue with those
Who's the
steps?
committee? I don't even know who the committee is. Do you know the
Was
committee?
it government ops or?
Is it ad hoc? I think it was. You were on it, Petrus was on that.
So you're here, the committee's here. Awesome.
There you go. But it's an operational issue, you know, that was born out of, that was an operational
Well,
situation.
it started as a CGR recommendation to
Right.
do a lot of centralizing of the county's function when we paid the consultant to come in and say, where are the opportunities? But I think you do have to have a plan to do it and start small, but you have to have enough people that are
Right.
working for the organization to make it happen.
We haven't even, you know, Grace, for instance, hasn't been able to do 100% to just being finance director. And Connie's been doing, you know, and my point is, it's just not been.
Well, then,
I'm sure, Grace, there might be little steps that you have thought of taking even about consolidating, but you've got to get your head above water.
get the headhunter for that group.
Yeah.
Talk about a headhunter for 2 or 3 other groups while we're sitting here.
Yep.
Elaine, can I ask one question? So am I understanding this correctly, that the minimum qualifications, you have to be a graduate from a New York State school?
It's a civil service question. I've not actually paid attention to that before.
Because that's what this says.
I,
And if that's the case, that's probably part of the problem.
I'm pretty sure that we have had other states applicants, so I'll have to ask Diane.
I don't know if Heidi and Elaine, if you remember when
Yeah,
we
we
were,
changed
and
this.
we got rid of that because we felt
We
that.
know it was limiting in another situation, in an ad hoc committee and we reviewed. it. We did get rid of, I think it's old and standard in many positions, this New York State. et cetera.
And so this is a new position in the county, so I'm not really sure where.
Associate's degree is the or. There's an associate's degree in 12.
Every one of these says New York State.
What do they mean by
Regionally
regionally
accredited
accredited?
or New York State.
So does regionally mean
Cute.
the Northeast? Does regionally mean
I
all
would
of the
say
United
it would
States? Like what, how are we defining regionally?
I
Yeah.
would say less than state, not more than state. Like
Yeah.
Cayuga College or.
I don't think
Cayuga.
that they, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't think that civil service is not qualifying anybody who has a degree from another state.
I would question that.
As a previous commissioner from civil service, that would not have been the situation. If we had someone, even from, they still have a 4-year degree, they still would be qualified.
Did you?
'Cause it's an
did you get the
or.
one
Yeah,
that's-
the turn that's.
Is yours or?
Yeah, well, that's the what Brenda just handed out.
Yeah, or originally accredited or New York State Registered College. So originally accredited is any other or a New York State.
So when they say regionally accredited, they might mean like accredited out of Ohio that's accredited
Yes.
by Ohio State.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You can check with Diane, but I'm sure I would be,
You'd bet your children's life.
I would.
Depends on what day.
Which one?
All right, thank you. I like to see where maybe we're standing in our own way of solving problems. So, thank you.
Okay, I think we had a motion and a second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is the budget change. Now, do you have the last one to do or?
I do have one more to do. Yes, so we have a vacancy in our aging services assistant position. So we're just looking to fill that.
The motion for filling one aging services assistant position in the Office for Aging.
And yeah, move it.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, any questions about this of recent resignation or? Yes, vacancy, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do you have any?
Just a quick mention that our farmers market coupon distribution for seniors is starting on Monday. We're going to have a straight 2 weeks, hopefully, of distributing the coupons, drive-through distributions. We're going to start at the Finger Lakes Mall. The health department has kindly provided us with some of their outreach guides that we can give to the folks that they will then be able to take to the market. The highway department, we are having it out at the mall for the first time because we were backing up traffic when we did it at Cayuga Community College. So we're going to try them all. The highway department is going to help us get some cones out to control traffic. And we expect 300 to 400 people at that distribution. We have a total of 700 coupons to give out. People have to be income eligible and attest to that as a signature. They have to be 60. So that's the exciting. If anybody wants to help next 2 weeks, we'll take it. Hopefully it's not raining. That's all I have.
All right,
Thank
Debbie,
Thank you.
Last, I forgot Josh, because I know everyone probably wants to leave. I have one resolution this evening authorizing the chair of the county legislature and the director of the youth bureau to execute agreements with various agencies listed to provide youth development services. The allocations were voted on and approved by our youth advisory board.
okay, can I get a motion in a second for this?
Move it.
He wants to do both.
I want to do both.
And this is the OCFS money.
Yeah, this is the
Nothing to do with the
OCFS.
ARPA money that you.
Nope, correct. This is the OCFS money, and this is funding that was for from January 1st of 2023 through September 30th of 2023. So the majority of these programs funded are summer programs.
Okay. And some are new from,
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
and you did the RFP and
Mhm.
these agencies answered and.
Yep.
Great,
Yep, and there's some other applications that we received that we are going to hold on to for the next round of allocations because they were more year round and they weren't really summer specific. So we wanted to focus on a lot of the summer specific ones so we could get those up and running.
all right. Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
And just a couple of updates. I didn't have an update at the time when this was submitted through, but just to let you know, some of these youth bureau funded programs that are running now. I spent some time yesterday at the MID program at the Cato school, and I talked with some of the kids and I observed some of the programming. So it's really nice to go out in the communities and see the programs that the youth bureau and the county are funding. That program ends July 27th. They have 90 participants right now. The Rev Theater happened to be there as well. That's another program that we are sponsoring. They do a 45-minute free program and they have 38 bookings so far throughout the area. 14 specifically are in Cayuga County. So it's ESOP stable. So they're all over the place. If you can go to any of your libraries or town parks, they have that free program running this summer. Our Governor Youth Council applications are going to be moved on to the state judging next week, is what I was told earlier in the week. I don't know who those youth are at this point, but I will keep everybody updated. The Booker T. Washington Summer Camp is currently in their first 3-week session. There is a second session in August. They have a schedule of activities varying from gardening, film class, dance, reading, writing. It's very interesting, just the schedule that they have. And that's another program that the Youth Bureau has funded. Also, the Auburn Music Boosters have 150 students in their free program, which musicians from 4th through 12th grade across Cayuga County schools are receiving free musical instrument free lessons. And that started this past Monday and goes through August 11th. And then on August 11th at the New York State Equal Rights Heritage Center on South Street, they're going to be doing a concert for that program. So that was really popular. This year, they were very surprised at the turnout that they had. And one final update is Senator Rachel May's office had reached out through legislator McNabb Coleman, so thank you, to think about some ideas, some community-wide violence disruption programs that are going on here in Cayuga County. CHAD is one of them. They have a Too Good for Violence program that they do in most of their Cayuga County schools. So the senator's office did research this program. They spoke to CHAD, and this collaboration in time is going to result in a funding award, which will be announced shortly. So I'll keep you updated on that as well. And that's all I have this evening. If anyone has any questions.
The only thing is, at some point, you'll be looking at the allocation, the ARPA allocation, and how you might go ahead and use some of those funds.
Yep, I do have some applications in for that as
Okay.
well. And I know there's one, some that I want to speak to you about as well, because they do, as a reminder, have to be allocated by 2024 and then spent by 2026.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I have something. before you
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So someone asked me, and it was an interesting question, why Auburn Community Hospital is not represented at the county. And I didn't know how to answer that. Either in HHS or which is what I would think they would be. Do you know?
Because we have no oversight of our community hospital.
But
We don't.
No, we have nothing, we have no official oversight of that operation.
Okay. Is that Auburn City? Do they have oversight?
No.
It's a private
It's a
hospital.
hospital.
They're private as a
It's
community.
a not-for-profit, governed by the state of New York, licensed as an Article 28. Yes, we have no oversight of our community hospital.
Nice.
Okay, if nothing else, motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Second.
Opposed?
No, yeah, try.
Didn't I say, motion